growing up in Colorado, growing up in Basalt, up in the Roaring Fork Valley, was awesome. Just from a real young age, parents used to drop me off at my middle school, hop on a bus, go up to ski school, and ski all Saturday and head back down. As I left the mountains and kind of went through some hardship, really encountered God in a new way and realized, there's not just purpose in your lifestyle and what's around you, but God and really the mountain that the church is a huge part of your purpose.
Thinking about the theme for the year, and the more that I thought about it, the theme for the year for me was God's house. God's house. And living here in Colorado has been interesting because, we've learned a lot, different culture, a different lifestyle. But you know how when you go to the mountains here, especially on the weekend, there's just thousands of people headed to the mountains, and you can be stuck on the freeway for hours, right? And it's the joke that church planners have in Colorado. They always say, Sunday they pray that nobody wants to go skiing, hiking, boating, fishing, biking, because everybody heads to the mountains. And I remember one time I was with my daughter, and we were headed up to the mountain, and we were in a traffic jam, and I leaned over to her and I said, I wish people would treat God's house the way that Colorado treats the mountain, right? And that they would just be there no matter what. I just seeing the traffic jam and the cars. And then I came across this verse in Isaiah about a month ago. And I want to read it to you here. It's on the front of your document. But the verse says, God's house will be the mountain, and the nations will river toward it, and people from all over will set out for it. God's house will be the mountain, and all nations will river towards it. People from all over will set out for it. And I remember just watching the freeways packed and people flooding to get to the mountains. And in my spirit last week, I just saw this reversal about how God's house, here we are in the middle of one of the most beautiful places in the world. We're surrounded by mountain peaks and majestic and snow-capped and beautiful, and in every direction that you look, there's something gorgeous, all these mountains. But you know what? Right in the middle of Colorado, right in the middle of Denver, is another mountain. And it's stronger and higher and more powerful than any of the other mountains. And the Bible calls it God's house.
I think I've heard a few different phrases that have really struck like the heartstrings, and a few things that people have said about a place of healing, home. I got saved when I was 19 and was a part of a church, and just wasn't very well received when I was there. And I remember when I walked into the Pearl Church and how loved and accepted that I felt, which is awesome. And I love hearing what the impact that the frontline team that has had on multiple people here, and the experience that people have. But there's a different element of feeling not just home, but feeling family. This place truly has become almost everything to me. The kingdom of God, where I felt so loved and so well received and so empowered by incredible people that God has placed in my life. And but it's something that God gave me a revelation this year, that it's something worth laying your life down for. But I had that revelation because of what the house of God did for me. And I remember the first time I met Doug in a warehouse for the Journey Tracks class. It was the second Sunday I was here. I just knew immediately, I felt like this was going to be my home, this was going to be my family, of how people accepted me. But I remember he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "Are you from Colorado?" And I said, "Yes, I'm from here." And he said, "We moved here for you." And I believed him.
When I entered the church, I was just a really broken and lost teenage girl, and was just looking for something deeper. I knew that God was trying to get my attention, but I just wasn't ready to open up my heart to Him yet. And I would just go into the church and would sit in youth services and literally cry the entire time I was there. And over time, God placed certain people in my life who I believe will always be in my life, just mentors and pastors who really taught me how to open up a place that I kind of just closed the door and shut off in my life, and where I needed deeper healing, but maybe I didn't even recognize I needed deeper healing. And I didn't really realize that God was the only person that could heal those places in my heart. I was in a place where I would say I was just kind of walking through the motions of life, and then when I walked into church, I just saw there was something different there, and I knew I wanted it. And God quickly grabbed a hold of my life, and now that's just my deepest passion, is to help heal broken people and truly heal them, not just put band-aids on their wounds, and to also just truly show people what it means to walk their life out.
To see these incredible transformations. People really, for the first time in their lives, coming to appreciate just even the smallest amount what it means that God actually loves them unconditionally. See the impact of that on someone's life that comes from a legalistic background where they could never get to a place of feeling like they had any worth, and to come to see something very different, and to experience the healing and the freedom, the joy that comes from that, to see marriages healed.
I am so glad to be in the Pearl Church, because this is a church I know that has a destiny. It's not a church that has a small vision. It's a church that is a place where people can come to get healed. But what I love is that they also learn to become healers, that we can touch not only our own congregation, but we can touch our city and we can touch our world. The destiny means that we have a voice and that we can make a difference. And I believe the Pearl Church is a church that is destined to have a voice that can make a difference, to bring good out of evil, to bring light where there is darkness, to bring hope where there's despair. That's who we are, and that's where we're going. And I am so thankful that I can be part of that vision.
You know, one thing about mountains is that they're visible. They're up high. There's something you can navigate by. I can look that the mountains are to the west to know which direction I'm going. And we just really believe that God has called our house to be that kind of a house where we can come and we can be a city that is set on a hill. When people are in need, when people need direction, when people don't know where to go for help, that God's house is just this visible thing where people know exactly where to go. And we're so excited about this year. We believe that God has tremendous opportunities for us to reach into our community this year in greater ways and reach those that don't know the love of Christ. And you know, our mission is love God, love people. That is our heart here at the Pearl Church. And this year we believe more than ever we're going to live out that mission statement to love God and to love people.
The Pearl Church has a mandate, and our mandate is a mandate that the local church is the most important thing happening in any city and in any community through the grace of Jesus. It's the local church. It's the local body. We believe in churches and we believe in church planting. And when we moved here to Colorado, before we ever even arrived, when we were still sitting in an office in Portland, Oregon, and we were taking offerings and receiving and raising money for Colorado, before we ever got here, we started giving money and sowing into church plants. We've been doing it since before we ever even lived here. We have sown into many of the church plants here in Denver, and we're going to continue to do that. When someone comes into the city and they're going to plant a church and we believe in them, we believe in their vision, then I believe it's our responsibility to sow into what they're doing. And we've done it since day one. It's a part of who we are. And Heart for the House is a way for us to do that throughout the course of the year, to sow into church plants, to sow into Denver. More churches, more people. That's what I believe.
I really believe that, the Bible's clear. Jesus said, I'm going to build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And I see a church and believe for a church that will really go out into the world and grab people and bring them into the light and see people's lives changed radically by the very presence of God, the house of God, the family of God, and just really believe that the house of God is where you find out who you are, you find out where you're going, you find your destiny, you find your calling, and you find out who you get to do it with. And so the house of God is a very powerful place. And yeah, I'm excited about this season, excited to be a builder of God's house, and it's going to be incredible.
We came here over 7 years ago to be part of a team to build a church from nothing, and to see a church come out of nothing to what it is now is phenomenal, and really believing for what it will be a church that's going to be impacting the city, impacting people's lives, reaching lost people, and a church for everyone, where anyone can come, feel loved, feel accepted, feel like they belong, feel like there's a place for them, and feel the presence of God. Feel like, man, God's in this place.
So a little over a year and a half ago, my wife and I came out here to Denver because God had called us to plant a church here, and we didn't know exactly what it looked like or where exactly. And while we were here, we were visiting some of the churches in the area, and we came to Pearl Church one day. We didn't know anybody here. We just had some friends tell us we had to come check it out. And so we came in. By the time we dropped the kids off and walked in, we had about 2 minutes before the service started, and I met Elliot Sawyer, and when he heard that we were church planters, he immediately took me back to the green room and said, hey, you've got to meet Pastor Doug. And I could tell immediately that he had such a heart for church planters and had such a vision for seeing the church really grow here in Denver. And it meant so much just to speak in those few moments and hear his heart for Denver. And we had no idea what was going to happen during that service. And it was that day when Pastor Doug came up after worship and felt led to call my wife and I up on stage to pray over us and pray over our ministry and to really show us that they believe in us. And it was so encouraging that he saw something that God was doing, and he wanted to be a part of it. He wanted to be a part of growing the church. And even though it wasn't his church, it was God's church, and he wanted to invest in that. And he had the church pray over us, and then he took up an offering for our church plant, for our ministry. And the fact that he was willing to do that and to invest in us, barely even knowing us, was so encouraging, and it kind of boosted us, and it really lifted up our spirits. And not only that, but it helped us to really take that first step. And shortly after, we knew that God was calling us to Lakewood, and the part that the Pearl Church played in us being able to make that first step was so incredible. And we are so thankful for you and for what you have done and what you've enabled us to do here in Denver.
One of the things we're going to do this year is we're going to partner together with some ministries that are reaching the city. but not just partner with anybody. We partner with people that we have a like spirit with, that we can knit our hearts with, because real ministry and successful ministry takes the knitting of the heart.
God had spoke to us about the promised land and about getting there with the promised people. And God made it really clear, like, the pearl was our people. And there's such a sense of peace when you have the right people in your life. And we found that. Like, there's people here that are kindred to us, meaning they understand things the way we understand things, they see things the way we see things, and their passions and their pursuits are very similar to what we have. And so we just found like family really quick and integrated really quick, just because the culture, the DNA, and the heart is so much of who we are.
And we want to reach our city with some of these folks. One of them is Pastor Brian Cedarwall at the Dream Center, because they do things that we can't do, and they reach people that we don't reach every day. And so we're going to partner, we're going to work, we're going to love, we're going to support, and we're going to get behind what they're doing. And we're going to be able to say that we're a part of reaching this group of people in our city. That's huge to us.
The heart of what we do, really, we tell people, is intervention and prevention. There's a big chunk of it that is working with men and women that are coming out of prison. They don't know where to get housing, they can't find jobs, and so they go back to the old lifestyle and they get back in trouble and they repeat that cycle. And then 75% of those children that have a parent incarcerated end up going to jail or prison, and so that cycle just repeats. And our goal is to break that cycle, to build those relationships and support and be a part of that. It's the moms that we meet that have multiple kids that are either homeless, or they're living in a van, or they're about to be evicted and they don't know where to go. And so we try to create the presence of the church into those neighborhoods where they can get plugged into the faith communities, and we can just love and bring them back to wholeness and to health. We have a ministry called the Adopt a Block. And so we get into the housing projects every first and third Saturday. If you can show up, you can smile, you can serve, and you can make a difference. And so we plug in volunteers at the same sites in the city so that we can be consistent. Most of that is kid and youth driven. We've got a bunch of Denver Bronco athletes. We've got some NBA guys that come out and just play sports. And at the end, we wrap it together and light up the grill, and we feed the neighborhood so that we get to sit down, we get to share Jesus, love on these families and these kids, and let them know that somebody cares. But the greatest part is we get to let them know we're coming back. And so we get to know their names, their stories, their faces, and they know ours as well. And so I feel like almost like God's called me to be a lifeguard. I want to jump into where people are drowning or in crisis, and we want to rescue people and pull them out, get them planted to where, like, here you go, Pastor Doug, here's someone that needs discipled, and then I can jump back in. And my call that God's given me is just to be the hands and the feet in the dirtiest, the hardest, and the craziest places. That's why we love Pearl Church, right? A heart for the city that is reaching people, and that we can plug people in with Pearl, that we can share and volunteer in the city together and create moments that lives are being changed.
I love God's presence, both in the worship and the message. Even before I was a Christian, I was looking for transcendent moments in all the wrong places and ways. But all of those false experiences, they're just a cheap imitation of the real moment of touching God that takes you to the mountain that's better than even the Rocky Mountains.
Addiction is such a part of my story. Such a part of my family's story. Like addiction, from like drug addiction, alcohol addiction in this city is, like, I would love to see the Pearl be a place where someone, not even just like maybe someone who's an addict, but like a mom, a sister, like a husband, a friend knows, like, that's a safe place I can go. Like, and I'm gonna walk in the door and anyone at this table is gonna love me and see me and not see my problem, not see this stigma, but see me. And I think that's like what I think that recovery can't happen if someone's not believed in. And so if we talk about recovery, it's like knowing, for an individual, knowing that there's this God that sees them and not their addiction, and like loving them into freedom, for sure.
I always just go back to, I think that's probably everyone's story, my childhood, and just growing up in a broken home with a, alcoholic dad. And when the church that really, at that point in my life changed our life, like we were broken and hurting. My dad was in and out of the house, and, they saved my life. They saved my sister's life, that family, the community there. And I think it was that point that I really, met Jesus, and it became real for me. So for me, like as we're talking about the type of church, or, as even Malia was talking about recovery and stuff like that's, the people who are walking in the door, you don't know what their stories are. You don't know where they come from or what they might be going home to. And it's a big deal. Like you don't know if that snapshot, that moment, like we've kind of been talking about, might be the only one that you get with them, and to really make it count.
Just this week, as I'm getting ready for Sunday and getting ready to preach, I've had some talks and some appointments with 2 or 3 people who have been set free from different kinds of addiction. And one of the things that is so apparent, that is so in our face today, is that the issues of addiction of different kinds has saturated our society. And there's something happening that if the church and if God's people don't kind of stand up and use God's word and the authority that we've been given and the ability to bring healing and freedom, I think that society is going to be hurting. They're going to be behind because they need the church. That's our mandate. This year, on the issue of freedom and addiction, we're going to begin to take steps. How is it that we can help? What ministries could we start? How can we take our first 2 or 3 steps into really allowing people an environment to come in and experience freedom in their life?
A lot of times people focus on the program, the structure, the departments, and that's all method and mechanics. But this church is all about mission. And it drives mission in relationships, mission in the city, mission in reaching people, mission with loving families, taking care of kids, taking care of teens. And so literally we felt like home instantaneously.
I think there's a lot of people out there that, they have this whirlwind or tornado of circumstances that just blocks out any vision for anything else that they can't get past. And I mean, when you give your life to Christ and you find a church that really understands its place in the kingdom and the people in it understand their place in the kingdom, what happens is that God's face is able to actually get close enough to you to where all that circumstance, you can't even see it, because all you see is Jesus, even in your peripherals. The great thing about that is with a church that understands its place in the kingdom, now that Jesus' face is so clear and blocking out the circumstance now, you can start to pull those things out and really look at them and deal with them. I'm beginning more and more, I guess not beginning, I'm just understanding better what a small piece of the puzzle we are to a really big picture. And our piece just happens to fit in the part of the puzzle that the Pearl Church fits into. And it fits. It's not, we don't have to shave anything down to put it in there, It just fits just right.
One of the things that we want to do this year, and one of the things that Heart for the House is going to help support, is some work that we're going to do in human trafficking. People don't know this, but here in Denver, human trafficking and its effects have actually gone up over 60% in the last 2 years. And people are transporting human beings through our city and through our state because we're in the middle, just like United Airlines or Southwest Airlines. It's become a hub. And what we want to do is, if we're really the mountain of God, then we need to be a place where people can come to us for hope and for help and for rescue and for justice. And I think that it would not be a part of our mission or our heart to ignore that. So this year, we're going to begin that process. We're going to start down that road. And I think that it's going to be a God thing. And it's going to be a time and a place and a season of deliverance for some people who need help.
Hey Pastor Doug, hey Pastor Donna, and all at Pearl Church. I'm Ben Cooley, and I just want to honor you for all that you are doing to serve your city, to think above and beyond, to help the least, the last, and the lost. And we as Hope for Justice just want to celebrate you right now. You are awesome. You know, I don't know if you know, but we're an organization that helps victims of modern day slavery. We want to create and design a world free from slavery. And we've been talking, and I know that's in your heart, that's in your DNA. In fact, I think it's in our King's DNA as well, is to serve the least and the last and the lost, to extend out to the brokenness of humanity and do something about it. And I want to invite you right now to be part of that, to join the fabric of this abolition movement that seeks to create a world free from slavery. We've already rescued hundreds of people, children, men, women, and now walking free because of our partnerships with the local church. And I just want to say to you, do not stop. Let's get involved. Let's turn word into action. Let's invade the darkness and bring about a world free from slavery.
You know, God's house is a house of purpose, and God has a purpose for us as a church to minister to people that are without hope, people that are struggling, they're broken, they're hurting. And I don't know if you know this, but this last couple years, we've had the opportunity to minister to a very special group of people in our community. This is a group of people that are battling cancer, fighting for their lives. They're in the middle of chemotherapy and radiation and going through probably the toughest season of their lives. And we have a group of ladies that have gotten together to make blankets, really beautiful blankets, along with a bag filled with items that really minister to them where they're at in this current season. And I've had the opportunity to go into these hospitals and give these bags to these women that are really in such a difficult time of their lives. And what a beautiful thing it has been for us as women to go in there and be able to minister. Some of these ladies are literally in their last days on earth, and we've been able to come and lift their spirits and just have this opportunity to minister to this group of people in this time of need. That's our mission, that's our purpose as a church, to give hope where there is no hope.
We are the co-leaders of Pearls of Hope Project, which is a really neat ministry that that God laid on Pastor Donna's heart for this chemo bag for cancer patients.
So what it is, it's a value of about $200 to $250, and we're able to make this bag for about $40. So the different things that we have in this bag is for comfort. We have a hat that's been handmade by one of the ladies in the church, a CD that has a ministry for healing and for words to give hope and to give peace. We have a mug here that allows for them to have tea, and we also have what we call angel mints, and those are mints that allow for them to remove the taste of the chemo out of their mouth. And we have different items also that help out, like socks, and we have the ladies of the church make this wonderful blanket and pray over this. Every blanket is prayed over once we make it.
In Kampala, Uganda, we actually support the youth pastors there, Seth and Diana Sokoloff. They went over there with Bob and Sharon Wager when the church was very young. Bob and Sharon went over, and I think the church was 150 to 200 people, and now it's a thriving metropolitan church, close to 2,000 people that's touching the whole nation. And Seth and Diana are actually putting their hands on and their heart into some of the next leaders of that country. It's absolutely phenomenal, and we're going to continue to sow into the nations and into these people because we believe it's better to give than to receive, and we won't reap unless we sow. We believe that. It's the Bible, and we love what these people are doing.
Hey Pearl Church!
Hello from Uganda!
Seth and Diana here, and we just want to say thank you and hello from Uganda. We are truly here because of your guys' support and love and prayers and encouragement, constant encouragement. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for all you guys do, for loving us, for caring about us, and talk a little bit about what your guys' support means to us and does for us while we're here.
Every year as a church, you guys have been the ones that bring us home. And to both of us, that means so much. It's not monthly support, but it's what gets us home to be able to see our families, and that is a huge expense, that is a huge burden lifted off of our shoulders. And also the ability to see nieces and nephews grow up and see friends and hug our moms, and we appreciate that so much. Not only that, but there's also individuals in your church that do support us on a monthly basis, and that monthly support is really a huge peace factor in our home because we can plan our budget and we can do all those things.
Yeah, and Pearl Church helps us manage and is a channel for all of our finances to go through, which is huge.
A huge blessing.
A lot of missions organizations will charge a fee on handling finances, and Pearl Church does it all for free, and that saves us a lot of money, which we're very, very thankful for.
And a lot of headache.
And a lot of headache. And beyond just that, what's really exciting for us about being a part of the Pearl Church is it's family.
Yeah.
Doug and Donna, Seaman, Lisa, Elliot, Malia, Bob and Sharon, just so many of you
we love you guys.
Are there, and we get to really feel like we're not just a part of a church, but also a part of a family, and doing that together, whether we're there, whether we're here, is just really fun.
Thank you so much for making us feel so loved and accepted and a part of your church family.
Yeah, we love you guys. We hope to see you soon. I think we're going to be there in November, and so we can't wait to give you guys hugs and thank you guys in person. But we just want to say hi, thank you, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Don't you think that if people knew what the house of God really was like, that Jesus was here and that his people are flawed and that we are who we are by God's grace, wouldn't that message cause people to flood into churches, into the house of God? It's almost like people believe you've got to be a certain thing before you get here, and this whole next generation needs to learn that God wants you to come as you are, because that's what family does, right? And if they knew that, and isn't that kind of our job, right? As leaders, isn't that our job to stay connected to who we are and what our story is, and what God's done in our life, and then to let that kind of fuel us and let that be the thing that we show the world, that we're trying to be real and trying to be honest with you. Isn't this right here what we're talking about? Isn't this what draws people? Because I don't think it's the show. I don't think it's the lights. I don't think it's the stuff. I think it's Jesus working through us while we're working stuff out with him. That's what I think it is.